The opinions expressed in the following programs are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect those of Rogers nor Rogers TV.
All right, hello and welcome. Thank you everyone for joining us today for the Ajax Pickering Board of Trade's Federal Candidates Business Issues Forum, sponsored by the Durham Region Association of Realtors. My name is Nicole Gibson. I am the Executive Director of the Ajax Pickering Board of Trade. And it is our hope today that you're going to come away from this event with all of the information you need to make an informed business decision for the upcoming federal election. Following my opening remarks, we're going to hear from our sponsor, who will then introduce our moderator for this event, Joan Weidman, our Government Relations Committee Chair, and then we will move into the opening remarks from our candidates, followed by a question and answer period. If audience members have any questions to ask, we ask you to please type them into the Q&A box, which is located at the bottom of your screen. But given the event's timing and number of candidates, we're not going to be able to ask these live. However, we are going to pass these questions on to candidates for response after the event. At this time, I'd like to recognize some important supporters today. Our presenting sponsor, the Durham Region Association of Realtors, and our event sponsor, the Toronto Regional Real Estate Board. The work we do as the Ajax Pickering Board of Trade is made possible in part with the support of our premier partners, Bell Canada, Boyer Auto Group, Durham Live, Lexicon Energy, Hubble Canada, McGovern Hurley, Ontario Lottery and Gaming Corporation, Ontario Power Generation, Safran Landing Systems, TD Commercial Banking, and UPAC Group of Companies. Our community leader is One Toronto Gaming, and our 2021 community partners are the City of Pickering, Lev 2 Master Cabinetry and Millwork, the Town of Ajax, and Trent University Durham and GTA. I'd also, of course, like to give a big thanks to our 2021 Board of Directors, who give their time and expertise behind the scenes to help set the strategic course for our organization. A very special thank you to our Government Relations Committee. The Board of Trade's advocacy efforts, including leadership on events like these, are driven by this group, led by Joan Weidman, Vice President, Corporate Services, Lenbrook Group of Companies. You will be introduced to Joan in a few minutes, but I'm first going to invite our presenting sponsor up to the virtual stage to say a few words. Please welcome from the Durham Region Association of Realtors, Chief Executive Officer, Wendy Giroux. Hi, Wendy.
Good morning, and thanks, Nicole. As she said, I'm Wendy Giroux, the CEO of the Durham Region Association of Realtors. It's an honor for us to be partnering with the Ajax Pickering Board of Trade, because it's very important to draw our work and support with our local stakeholders. DROR has over 1,480 Realtor members, and we're a very active government relations committee that advocates on behalf of our members and homeowners. As a community leader and a member association, our aim is to help members excel as real estate professionals. And more than ever before, housing and home ownership has been a very important part of this election. Durham Region continues to be a fast and growing popular region with a strong demand for home ownership, especially in Ajax, Pickering, and Uxbridge. The average house price in Ajax is valued over $970,000, over $1 million in Pickering, and $1.2 million in Uxbridge, with listings on the market for an average of only 7 to 10 days. There has been a substantial decrease by 46% of new listings in Ajax for the same times last year, and Pickering and Uxbridge new listings last month were down a 36% and 34% decrease respectively. DROR recently conducted a survey through Nanos Research and found that 2 in 3 Durham residents consider the region to be a safe place to raise a family. Receiving high ratings for Pickering and Uxbridge residents, our objective is to provide our members and stakeholders with quality information, thereby promoting living in the region by supporting our local realtors. Today's Candidates Forum is a great opportunity to hear from our candidates, and we look forward to hearing from our participants on issues important to all of us. Thank you, and I pass it over to Joan Weidman.
Well, good morning, everyone, and thank you, Wendy. I am Joan Weidman, the chair of the Government Relations Committee, and our committee is comprised of more than 20 business leaders, representative of a very broad group of industries, and who are passionate about the success of our local business community. We meet monthly to discuss policy and challenges that businesses are facing and how we can advocate for those businesses and on those issues and with our other stakeholders. So I'd like to thank the candidates who are joining us today for giving our business community an opportunity to learn more about you and your party platforms. We followed the standards set by the federal leaders debate in issuing invitation to today's event. Unfortunately, Ajax Liberal candidate Mark Holland, who had been scheduled to attend, had to withdraw yesterday as he was called away to the national campaign. As well, Ajax Conservative candidate Ashrad Aswan did not respond to our invitation to participate, unfortunately. So to recap the rules, this is a Q&A forum, not a debate. Candidates will be given 2 minutes for opening remarks and then 1 minute to answer the questions unless otherwise noted. Right now, I think we're going to stick to 1 minute based on timing. And at the end, we're going to give you 2 minutes for closing remarks and telling us why we should vote for you. The timekeeper's clock will be visible to the candidates with the frame turning red when the time is up. The questions were not shared in advance with any of the candidates, and the subject matter was drawn from business issues and priorities managed by our Government Relations Committee. If attendees have additional questions or concerns for the candidates, please enter them in the Q&A and we will pass these along to the campaign staff for all parties. So we will begin now with opening remarks in rotating alphabetical order, beginning with the candidates from Ajax and then followed by Pickering-Uxbridge. So we're going to start with Monique Hughes and follow that with Lee and then Eileen, then Jacob, and then Jennifer. So Monique, if you would start with your opening remarks, please.
Good morning, everyone. No pressure this morning being the first person out here, but no worries. I am Monique Hughes, your NDP candidate for Ajax. On September 20th, you have a choice between parties that have broken promises after another, time and time again. As a young Black woman who has grown up in Pickering for the last 27 years, I've seen our federal governments go from liberals to conservatives. And years over years, I just see a lot of broken promises. Small changes, but broken promises. Our current MPP is not here, but I wanted to thank him for what he's done thus far. Because I also believe at this time that Ajax needs a new and a fresh perspective. And I know that I am the woman for this job. We have all heard the saying, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result. Well, we've been doing it. So clearly it's time for a change. And again, I'm Monique Hughes, and I believe that I'm the next best thing for Ajax, not only because the NDP's principles and policies fit all Canadians, but because I'm a person who's willing to help. I'm a woman who is put herself forward as a young Black woman, as well as it's time for change in Ajax. So remember me, please. And thank you very much for your time and for being here today.
Thank you, Monique. I appreciate your opening remarks. Now we're going to move to Lee, who is the Ajax Green candidate. Lee Paulseth.
All right. Good morning, everyone. My name is Lee Paulseth, and I'm the Ajax candidate I'm the Green Party candidate for Ajax. I want to take a moment to thank the Board of Trade for putting this forum together, and also to thank our businesses and community members for their work during the pandemic. This past year and a half has shown us that there are many inequities within our society, and businesses, especially our local businesses, had to bear the brunt of a lot of those inequities. And I know that you fought very hard to not only maintain your business, but also help the community during this incredibly difficult time. We always say that local businesses are the backbone of our community, and truly, you really showed that during the pandemic. So the Green Party is known very much for our initiative on the environment, but really what that has to do with is long-term planning and resilience. And as business leaders in our community, you understand that long-term planning is very important, as is building resilience within our community. So in addition to building that resilience through initiatives like guaranteed livable income and affordable housing, the Green Party wants to ensure that we support businesses throughout the rest of the pandemic. It is not over yet. We need to continue those supports for businesses. We need to increase access to internet so that businesses can grow. And specifically in Ajax, we need to make sure that businesses have access to technology and can really invest in green solutions and green technology in order to grow their businesses here in Ajax. So thank you very much. I look forward to discussions and yeah.
Thank you very much, Lee. We appreciate that. And now we're going to turn to the NDP candidate for Pickering-Uxbridge, Eileen Higdon. Just, you need to take yours off mute, please. Thank you.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. And yes, it is an absolute delight and excitement to be here with you today. I'm Eileen Higdon. I'm a retired RN. I'm a mother and a very proud grandmother of 3. I will be a strong voice in Ottawa to take immediate and meaningful action on climate change. I oppose the Pickering Airport. A measure of a society is how we take care of our elderly. What does that say about the 9,000 nursing home deaths here in Ontario during the COVID-19 outbreak? What does that say about our society? At the beginning of the outbreak, the Liberals wanted to subsidise a wage subsidy, and they offered $1,000 a month. What does $1,000 a month cover? Doesn't cover your rent, doesn't cover your food, and what about your bills? This is how disconnected and entitled our Prime Minister is. It was Jagmeet Singh and his NDP demanding it be increased to $2,000 as a condition of supporting the legislation. That's how Canadians got $2,000 a month. Jagmeet Singh and the NDPs is demanded the wage subsidy. Well, that was CERB payments, the first one. This is the wage subsidy raised from 15% to 75% before they would support the legislation during the worst times in our pandemic in order for businesses to survive. Jagmeet Singh got this for Canadians, and the Conservatives voted against these bills. This is where the New Democrats make a difference in a minority parliament. New Democrats fight for families and Canadians across the country. Justin Trudeau does not understand the real needs of Canadians. As a longtime NDP supporter, I am excited to join Jagmeet Singh on September 20th. Be courageous. Vote Eileen Higdon, Pickering-Uxbridge MP. Thank you.
Thank you, Eileen. And now we're going to move to Pickering-Uxbridge Conservative candidate, Jacob Mantle.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Joan, and thank you to the Board of Trade for having me here. I'll just echo the comments that, I appreciate that you're giving the business community a voice in this election process. And my thanks to the Durham Region Associate of Realtors for sponsoring. I'm sure we'll discuss housing unaffordability in our communities, and they have a huge role to play in that. I'm grateful to be here this morning. I'm also a little disappointed to have to be here this morning. Let me explain that. First, I'm grateful to be here because local businesses are a pillar of our community. They employ our friends and family, they contribute to the local economy, and they help sustain our national economy. Local businesses will always have my full attention if I'm your MP. I'm a little disappointed to have to be here because this is an unnecessary election and a dangerous one at that. And it distracts us from the business of recovery from the pandemic and getting our local businesses back to full strength. But despite this, Canada's Conservatives have put forward a positive plan called Canada's Recovery Plan to secure our future for all Canadians. And that includes big and small businesses right here in Pickering and in Uxbridge. You've had a tough go over the last 18 months. And even according to the board's latest survey, 75% of you experienced hardship over the pandemic. To help rebuild our main streets, Canada's Conservatives have put forward our recovery plan, and I'll highlight 3 points. The first is to pay 50% of the salary of net new hires for 6 months to get our friends and neighbors back to work. Second, a Main Street business loan of up to $200,000. And third, a tax credit of 25% of amounts up to $100,000 that Canadians invest in small businesses, Canadians investing in Canadian businesses. As an international trade lawyer, I've worked with countless Canadian and foreign companies moving goods and services across the borders. I understand that businesses exist to succeed and to make profit. And that's not a bad thing. And despite what Justin Trudeau says, this doesn't make you tax cheats. It makes you successful business owners contributing to our community. I want our businesses to thrive both at home and abroad. And my role, if elected as your representative, is to advocate for you on the issues that matter. I'm not here to tell you how to run your business or what you should or shouldn't do. I'm here to support you in succeeding. Thank you.
Thank you, Jacob. And we'll move now to Pickering-Uxbridge Liberal candidate, Jennifer O'Connell.
Hi, everyone. Thanks, Joan. Thanks, everyone, for being here today. And once again, for Ajax Pickering Board of Trade for hosting this forum. I have taken part in these many times before, and I'm really pleased to be able to do this once again and join you, even in this virtual setting. I think it's important to note what's at stake in this election. And I am quite happy to be here. I'm always open to hearing your ideas, your issues, and having the discussion on how governments can work for you to help support you. And nothing has been more evident than throughout these last couple of years in this pandemic. Nobody in 2019 anticipated a global health and economic pandemic that would face every country around the world. And when that happened, our Liberal government stepped up and had Canadians' backs. We said we'd be there for you as long as it took and to do whatever it takes to get our economy moving again. And an important factor in that is the fact that Canada has recovered 92% of jobs lost because of the interventions that our government has taken to help support businesses, to support families. And in comparison, for example, into the US, only 72% of those jobs have been recovered. This election is about who is going to best serve you in Ottawa. I've lived in Pickering my entire life. I've served this community as a city councillor, regional councillor, deputy mayor, and now I have the great privilege of serving as MP. And if I'm reelected, I will continue to fight for you, fight for our community, and make sure that there's progress and equality for all Canadians. That's what I'm here to fight for. So thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you, Jennifer, and everyone. We appreciate all of your comments this morning. So now we're going to move to the questions that focus on business-related issues and priorities. A reminder that this is a time to respectfully review your party's policies and positions. As you respond, you have up to 1 minute for each of your responses. And we are going to try to rotate the responses so that people have different chances to answer. But all candidates will answer all questions. And the first one is going to be started by the Ajax Green candidate, followed by the Ajax NDP candidate, and then we'll move through Pickering-Uxbridge candidates. So the first question, finishing the fight against COVID-19. What is your party's plan to work with the provinces to stop the spread of COVID-19 in Canada? And we're going to turn it over to Ajax Green candidate Lee to start us off.
Thank you, Joan, for that question. I think that is one of the biggest questions here in the election, which Jacob very rightly said we shouldn't be having. And so the Green Party is, very committed to making sure that we end the pandemic, but that we come out of it with a new normal. We want to make sure that we're establishing a social safety net so that when disruptions like this happen again, they won't be as disruptive for our communities. And so that means including things like guaranteed livable income so that folks have time to retrain into the skilled jobs that we need. It means investing in pharmacare for all, as well as making sure that Canada has the ability to create vaccines in the long run. And so these are some of the things that we're committed to doing, including increasing vaccination rates.
Thank you. And moving on to Monique Hughes to answer, please.
Hi, thank you for the question. Yes, the NDP party has been fighting for Canadians throughout this pandemic. Again, as Eileen said, we were able to get the CERB from 1,000 to 2,000, which has benefited many Canadians during this pandemic, and will continue to fight in that stream, as well as adding pharmacare to all Canadians. That will help, as well as when we're moving forward, as well as childcare for parents who need to go back to school, as well as go back to work. We understand that things are changing daily and daily, as well as we want to get all Canadians vaccinated so that we all can go back to what is the new normal. And I believe that the NDP has the best plan for Ajax as well as Canadians to be able to do that. Thank you.
Thank you, Monique. Now we're going to go to Uxbridge Pickering Conservative candidate Jacob, followed by Jennifer O'Connell, followed by Eileen Higdon. So Jacob, please.
Thanks, Joan, and thanks for the question. Two ways we're going to beat this: vaccination and testing. We need to get Canadians vaccinated so we can get back to normal, and we need to get fast and effective rapid testing into the hands of businesses and Canadians. And I'll commend the Board of Trade for stepping up on that and having access to rapid testing for their members in the community. So if there are businesses that need them, the Board of Trade can provide them. We need to move quickly to address new variants. We can't allow planes to touch down every week from hotspots around the world without effective testing at home, and that's what's happening. The third and fourth waves were entirely preventable if we had more vaccines in the hands of Canadians earlier, not signing contracts with the communist regime in China, who obviously did not provide us the vaccines they promised. So we need safe vaccines, more of them, and effective contact tracing and testing. There are fast, rapid tests approved all around the world, but they're sitting covered in red tape in Canada and not in the hands of Canadians. So two ways we're going to beat COVID-19 moving forward for small businesses: vaccinations, testing.
Thank you. And moving to Jennifer.
Thank you. Finishing the fight against COVID, first, let me point out there was no contract signed with the communist regime of China. But if Conservatives need to promote misinformation to scare Canadians, then that's the prerogative. When it comes to vaccines and delivering with provinces, the testing that Mr. Mansell just spoke about, those rapid tests were procured and provided by the federal government. 8 out of $10 fighting the pandemic came from the federal government. All of the vaccines we have procured. We know that the only way to avoid further lockdowns, to ensure that children are not in virtual learning again, is to ensure that Canadians who can get vaccinated do get vaccinated. The Conservatives don't even require their own candidates to be vaccinated, which is a shame. We know the best way to grow the economy and to deal with all of the other issues that we need to as a country is to get through this pandemic. And the way we're going to do that is by ensuring Canadians step up, continue to do the right thing, get vaccinated, and we will provide the money to provinces and territories to ensure that they can provide vaccine certificates so businesses know that people entering their business are not going to continue to spread this virus.
Thank you very much. Yeah, thank you. And let's move to Eileen now for her response.
Thank you. Yes, we are all ready for the pandemic to be done. We want to feel safe and see our loved ones and look forward to the future. As previous people have said, the vaccines and the testing are essential. But what is also essential is to look at ways to stop the misinformation. And for a Conservative to stand up and say, well, people need to be more informed when they themselves aren't giving out the correct information is very scary for somebody like me. I want to know the facts, and I don't want to be sent hither and thither to strange places to come up with kind of voodoo stuff. We need clear and honest information so that people can get better. Stop the vaccine. Stop. Anyway.
I'm sorry, that's the end of your time. So thank you, Eileen, I appreciate it. Now we're going to go to question number 2, and we are going to start in Pickering-Uxbridge riding with Jennifer, pardon me, and then Eileen, then Jacob, and that will be followed by Ajax. Here's the question. Economic recovery from the adverse effects of COVID-19 is the topic. What is your party's plan to assist businesses that are in the hardest hit sectors, including tourism, travel, hospitality, personal care, and retail, to name a few? What financial programs and measures will you take to encourage the recovery? So we'll start with Jennifer, and that will be followed by Eileen.
Thank you, Joan. This is a really important question. The hardest hit sectors absolutely are our focus in our platform. In 1 minute, I won't have time to get through all of it, but we specifically highlight those sectors that you've mentioned, and things like extending the wage subsidy, creating benefits for rehiring, streamlining the immigration process to ensure that there isn't work shortages in a lot of these sectors. In addition to that, we have created programs, like I said, CERB, more access to capital. We're also supporting small businesses on things like that we've heard for many years, on things like credit card fees, helping small businesses across sectors innovate using technology, because the pandemic has shown that small businesses having access to technology and these sorts of investments will help them be able to grow and expand their business. So we are going to create, in addition to rural communities in particular, we've increased funding for rural supports that will help businesses that didn't have access to, say, traditional capital in the past. But check out our platform, because I don't have enough time to get through all of it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. And now we'll move to Eileen Higdon.
Thank you. Canadian billionaires' wealth went up by 78 billion. That means it went up. It was above what they normally get as a profit. Since March 2020, nearly 100,000 Canadian women have been completely left off the other. And another fact, 17 people die every day from overdoses. So that in Canada. So in 10 days, 170 people have died each day in 10 days. And you multiply that for 365. It's a disgrace. And I feel embarrassed about it, and I want something done about it. 95 is the number that died last year in the Durham region. Now, we have to show care and consideration. We need methadone clinics, we need rehab, and we need retraining. It comes in a triangle. You cannot give one, you have to pay for it all. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And now moving to Jacob.
Thank you, Joan, and thanks for board members for the question. We've seen certain sectors hit real hard over the last 18 months, and that's why Canada's recovery plan put forward by your Conservative Party of Canada has specific policies to address that. I mentioned a couple in my opening statements, but I'll highlight 2 for the tourism and hospitality industries that have been devastated over the last 18 months. The first is what's called our Dine and Discover program, and that's going to provide a 50% rebate on food and beverages purchased from Monday to Wednesdays for a month as we open up. This is going to inject estimated over $1 billion into local restaurants and bars in our community. The second is our Explore Canada program, and that's going to provide a 15% tax credit on travel expenses incurred by Canadians in Canada in 2022. So that's going to help spur Canadians not only to see our beautiful country, which many of us haven't seen all of it, and myself included, but it's also going to inject money into our tourism sector here at home. And then the last is a GST holiday we're proposing in December for bricks and mortar retail stores who have also been hit hard over the pandemic. We want to put money back into those retailers' pockets and back into the pockets of Canadians rather than taking that GST for ourselves. Around the Christmas season, again, this is going to be a huge boost to our businesses. Thank you.
Thank you, Jacob. And now we're going to move on to Monique.
Hi, Joan. Would you be able to repeat the question for me, please, if you don't mind?
Certainly. Economic recovery from the adverse effects of COVID-19. What is your party's plan to assist the businesses that are the hardest hit sectors, including tourism, travel, hospitality, personal care, and retail, to name a few? What financial programs and measures will you take to encourage the recovery?
Thank you so much. Actually, this is a great question. As a travel agent, I definitely felt the hit of this pandemic, and there was grants and all this stuff sent out for travel agents and small businesses and such like that, but they had so much red tape to be able to get access to these things. But I believe with the NDP, with their platform, is to be able to get employees back into workforces, as well as if they're not comfortable in that job, or they feel like there needs to be an increase, what we will do is we will increase unemployment insurance, where people can quit their jobs and be able to go back to school to be able to get qualified positions. As we notice here in Ajax, there's a lot of work coming to Ajax. However, a lot of jobs that Canadian Ajax residents don't necessarily want to do. We're looking for better jobs that Ajax residents can be able to work and have a sustainable wage.
Thank you very much. Moving to Lee, the Ajax Green candidate.
Absolutely. Thank you. All right. So the Green Party is committed to supporting businesses until the end of the pandemic, as I said, so increasing those supports past what their end date is supposed to be. But we also want to make sure that we keep small business tax rate low at no more than 9%. We also want to invest in municipalities so that they can allow for long-term planning to support their businesses, so that they don't have to live from grant to grant in order to invest in the infrastructure that we need. The other piece, of course, is guaranteed livable income, allowing people the social safety net that they need to retrain, get the skills that we need for the jobs in Ajax. And this will allow folks to be able to get back to work and also work in a safe and a dignified way.
Thank you very much. Question number 3 is going to start with you, Lee, and then go around to Monique, and then Eileen, Jacob, and Jennifer in that order. And this question again is focused on fundamentals, broadband. The COVID spotlight has showed a huge gap in the buildup of high-speed broadband infrastructure here in Durham and in many places throughout Canada. With our employees continuing to work from home, students attempting to continue online studies, and for our businesses to manage their supply chains and to compete with e-commerce trade, it is quite obvious that this must be a major priority for the federal government. What is your party's financial and strategic plan to support this critical infrastructure build out through our country? And so we'll start with you, Lee.
All right, thanks. I didn't even have to mute myself. It's perfect. So we are committing to a broadband strategy across the country. Broadband and internet, we realize, is a right now. It's something that folks need in order to live and work within Canada. Some of the solutions we are proposing is to create hubs for high-speed internet through Canada Post, so that communities that don't have access to high-speed internet right now can do so in a through public service. We also want to make sure that our most vulnerable Canadians don't get left behind. So ensuring that access to rural internet is really important, and that we have the technology and the infrastructure to invest in the future. So that is some of the things that the Green Party is committed to, and we want to make sure that we support internet and business for all.
Thank you very much. And now we're going to move to Monique for her response from the NDP party representing Ajax.
Hi, thank you again. I don't have a direct answer for the broadband part specifically, but we do realize that a lot of us use our cell phones, and our cell phone plans are the highest worldwide in Canada. So the NDP will fight to bring that down. We are paying rates that are ridiculous. And on top of that, the same resources that we use for our cell phones for our internet are the same companies that we're using for our at-home data services. And we know that paying dual bills, we are paying ridiculous amount of monies to have these services that could be definitely cheaper in Canada. I will continue to fight with the NDP to make sure that we can get those costs down, because we all need access to this, especially now during this pandemic, that we realize that internet is something that is a necessity, not just a want. And I'm glad actually my internet is working great today.
Great, thank you, Monique. And we're going to turn to Eileen Higdon now.
Hello, thank you for the question. Yes, in Pickering, we have areas that do not get any internet service at all. It is very serious. And the NDP are aware of the needed investments in this. And one of the ways they're going to get the money to make these investments is through charging tax for the people who have great wealth. They have a record of fighting for you. We are not protecting billion-dollar companies who skate tax-free. This is real money that we need to have to service everyone, all Canadians. Since the Second World War, our taxes as a taxpayer has gone up, but business tax in the higher levels, they ask for forgiveness and they get it. And this has to stop. We are all connected. Nobody is a one-man island, and we need to benefit everyone. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And moving to Jacob, and that will be followed by Jennifer. Jacob first, please.
Thank you, Joan. Thanks for the question. Obviously, I think everyone on this panel agrees that internet is critical. Cell phone service is critical. I live in a part of Uxbridge that doesn't have access to broadband. In fact, the cell phone that I have from my firm, I have 0 bars on it this morning because I don't have access to cell phone coverage. I have to have 2 phones so that I can connect with residents. So my question to Ms. O'Connell is, over 6 years, why is that still the case? In Canada's recovery plan, we've committed to connecting all rural Canadians to broadband by 2025. And we're going to do that by building infrastructure and opening up our market to more competition. We have an oligopoly right now of Bell, TELUS, and Rogers. Those are your only options. We need more competition for Canadians to drive down the prices that other candidates mentioned and provide more options. We're going to do this by 2025.
Well, thank you, Jacob. And we're moving to Jennifer O'Connell now for her response. Thank you, Jennifer.
Thank you. Broadband has been a fundamental issue that I've been fighting for this community for a number of years now. And I was really proud that our government was the first government ever to move forward on broadband and seeing it as a national issue to ensure that every single Canadian is connected. And Mr. Mansell called me out specifically on it. Well, I can tell you, we have shovels in the ground right now because we are connecting Whitevale, Kinsale. We've provided over $2 million for the Pickering-Uxbridge fiber trunk project with Durham region. We've partnered with municipalities and we are making these investments now. So while other governments sat for years and years and talked and did nothing, we have shovels in the ground and we have leveraged $3 trillion to work with partners to ensure that every single Canadian is connected. And we have made this a major priority for our community. And you're seeing those investments right now as we speak.
Okay, thank you very much for that. And we're going to move on to question number 4. And this is another fundamental. And this is modernizing the tax system. And I'm going to start with Jennifer, go to Eileen, and then Jacob, and then we'll move to Ajax, where we'll go to Monique and then Lee. So the chambers and boards of trade believe that Canadians need a modern tax system that's globally competitive and that encourages business investment. What is your party's position on the need to undertake a comprehensive and independent tax system review? So starting again with Jennifer, please.
Thank you, Joan. I'm actually quite happy with this question. I was Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Finance, and prior to that, I sat on the Finance Committee where we actually studied this very issue. And we made several recommendations to the government, and a vast majority of them were actually accepted. But we're going to go further in this platform and after this election. One of the things we heard from businesses, for example, is to accelerate the capital cost allowance. This is a massive issue in terms of ensuring businesses and capital development. We still continue to have the lowest combined tax rate in the G7. In terms of simplifying the tax rate, we have, I personally fully support that. We have made these recommendations from the Finance Committee. The Minister of Finance has moved forward, as well as we want to create a beneficial ownership program in this country. And we want to make sure that all businesses can access a fairer tax system, including cracking down on financial crimes that cost all Canadians. And that is also a key commitment in our platform.
Thank you very much. And we're going to move to Eileen Hickton for her answer on behalf of the NDP party for Pickering-Uxbridge.
Hello, I have the NDP and Jack Mead Singh has been for more than 2 or 3 years, for 10 years, demanding tax reform. And this would be an excellent time to do it. We are really in bad need. When we have billions of companies who are making, Amazon in particular, made a profit of $79 billion during the pandemic. I really think this is sinful. I think obscene profits. Everybody should have a profit. And nobody's here for a giveaway. But we do need to increase the tax rate on very high, and I would love to see a tax reform. Thank you.
Thank you. And moving to Jacob Mantle for his response.
Thanks, Joan. Thanks for the question. While I don't practice tax law, the fact that we have a whole department that does should tell you how complicated it can get for businesses. And that adds additional unnecessary cost, especially for small businesses. So in Canada's recovery plan from the Conservatives, we proposed a number of measures to address that. I agree the tax plan is far too complicated. So a couple that we're going to do that I think will help small businesses is, first, we're going to revise CRA's penalties so that first-time problems or errors would only receive minor fines, and then increase those for severity for repeat offenses. Because in my line of work, often in dealing with government bureaucracy, sometimes I's don't get dotted and T's don't get crossed, and that shouldn't result in huge fines for small businesses trying to employ our friends and neighbors. We're also going to create a Welcome to the CRA program with materials and guidance for new small businesses. When you're starting off, trying to figure out the tax code is probably the last thing on your mind. And last, we're going to allow businesses that have $60,000 or less in revenue to use simple cash accounting. Again, that's hopefully going to reduce costs for those trying to get businesses off the ground. And I think combined, that's going to help reduce cost, reduce red tape, and let you as businesses focus on what you should be doing, which is employing people and making a profit and helping our community.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And we'll move on now to the NDP candidate for Ajax, Monique Hughes, followed by Lee. Monique?
Yes, the New Democrats will introduce a temporary COVID excess profit tax, what puts additional 15% tax on large corporations' windfall profits during the pandemic, to make our tax system fairer and ensure that the wealthiest individuals are paying their fair share of tax. We will increase their capital gains inclusion rate to 70%. I know this is a part that you hear from the NDP all the time, that we are going to tax the wealthiest of Canadians. And I think that they should pay their fair share of taxes, because there's so many regular, everyday Canadian folks who cannot manage, who are now, have we noticed now that when we are shopping, or if you do go into the dollar stores, that essentials are now available in the dollar store. People are buying bread at the dollar store. These are things that we're going to have to tax the richest so that regular everyday folks can have back some money in their pocket.
Thank you, Monique. And moving to Lee, the Ajax Green candidate.
Yes, thank you for that question. So we have not had a tax commission in Canada since the 1960s, and that needs to change. We need to really look at the way that we're taxing individuals and businesses, and close loopholes for large businesses that are, storing billions of dollars overseas in multinational corporations. We need that money to be available for smaller businesses to invest in our communities. So that's something that the Green Party is committed to doing. We need to start taxing overall wealth. So similar to the NDP, taxing the wealthy to help other folks. What we want to do, though, is tax total wealth. So not just looking at income, but taxing total wealth, and corporations who are making the most climate contributions, and also making sure that they're contributing to the community in a green recovery.
Thank you very much. And now we're going to move to question number 5. I hear somebody maybe needs to mute. There. Good. Question number 5, again, another fundamental. And this is going to start with you, Lee, and it's then going to go to Monique and then move to Eileen, Jacob, and Jennifer. And this is the federal transportation strategy. Movement of goods and services is a critical aspect of running a competitive business. We hear frequently about ocean port congestion, limited availability of ocean containers, limited commercial air flights, highway infrastructure needs, and other supply chain challenges. What is your party's strategy to improve transportation both within Canada, including our ports, rail and airports, and highways, and for international supply chains? So we're going to start with Ajax, and Lee, we're going to start with you.
Lovely. Okay, so we're gonna start local. Within highway infrastructure in Ajax, it's really important that we re-look at what our toll system of our highways looks like. Right now, it's very unfair. It does put the burden on small businesses for transporting their goods to market, and that's quite unfair. We don't see the same burden in the west end of the GTA nor in other areas of the country. Moving outwards, the Green Party is committed to green transportation, fast transportation, increasing the ability of folks to move by light rail across southern Ontario and to get goods and services to those ports where they're able to move their products internationally as well.
Thank you very much. And moving to Monique Hughes.
Hi, thank you again for this question. To be honest, I don't know enough about this to give a response today about that, but I do know provincially that we gave away, the Conservatives sold the 407, and that's been a very active conversation throughout Durham because we use that highway and the tolls are so high. And I know that for myself that I would fight with the and along with Jagmeet Singh to make sure that we can put more pressure on the businesses like the ETR 407 to make sure that we can get back affordable tolls in the area, as well as we know that other 400 highways are free going up and down, but the 418 and the 412 are toll highways. We're going to work to make sure that we get that back and that Canadians and Durham residents be able to use that with no cost or lower fees.
Thank you. And we appreciate your answer. Now we're going to move to the Pickering-Uxbridge candidates. NDP candidate first, Eileen Higdon.
Like Monique, is an area that I don't have a lot of information on, and I would I will look into it and have an answer for you later. And one thing I will say is we have to look at alternative for our cars and the amount of emissions that is caused for carbon emissions in this country. We are warming up 1.5 ahead of where we should be. And we have done nothing, zero, since the Paris Accord, our carbon emissions have increased. These are real problems that are here today. It is not unusual to have rain, 188 millimeters of rain. And we saw it with not last year when the Don Valley flooded. These are real things and are caused by the emissions and transportation of goods. Airlines are very bad for emissions. And if you are going traveling, I think you have to consider if there's ways you can do it without causing so much emissions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And now we'll move to Jacob Mantle, Uxbridge Pickering Conservative candidate.
Thanks, Joan, and thanks for the question on transportation. I think this is really an issue of lack of execution from the Liberal government. Despite announcing billions of dollars, in spending on infrastructure, very little of it has got shovels in the ground. In fact, according to the Auditor General, over 20% of what they've promised has been unspent. And likewise, according to the Parliamentary Budget Officer, the Canada Infrastructure Bank, which again set up by the Liberal government, won't meet its targets of spending money on infrastructure. So I think this is an issue of execution, and we need a government that's actually going to get shovels in the ground. I would note for our region, in Durham region, despite the fact that the Liberals announced a high-speed rail link, there's no stop in Durham region. And so my question to Jennifer is, why aren't we important enough to get a stop for this proposed high-speed rail link?
Okay, and so with that handoff, we'll move to Pickering-Uxbridge Liberal candidate Jennifer O'Connell.
Thank you, Joan. In regards to light rail, actually, the consultations are ongoing right now. I know Conservatives love to impose their will upon municipalities and communities, but no decision has been made about the stop. So we have been fighting hard for a stop in Durham, actually. But our position on infrastructure is to work with communities. I was a city and regional councillor. This is one of the reasons I ran, because we continue to get left out by the federal government, especially here in Durham. We were constantly left out of infrastructure spending. We need things like light rail. We are doing the work to convert the trucking industry to electric vehicles. It's why we fought so hard against the Trump administration. You talked about supply chain. We fought hard for Canadian businesses in our negotiations with NAFTA. We do what it takes to ensure that not only are we growing the economy, but we're doing so in a way that's sustainable and building the infrastructure that is going to sustain our communities and our businesses for generations to come.
Thank you very much. Thank you for those answers. So number 6 is another fundamentals, but this one is housing. A critical aspect of attracting employees to a workplace is the affordability and the availability of reasonable housing. And so we're going to start with Jacob Mantle and move through the Pickering-Uxbridge candidates with a question. What is your party's plan to assist with the housing supply issues across the country? So Jacob Mantle first, please.
Thank you, Joan. What an important issue. Housing affordability has come up at, I can't tell you how many doors I've knocked on. And it's personal for me. I'm a millennial in my early 30s. Me and my friends are trying to buy homes and start a family. And the reality is, over the last 6 years, affordability has just dropped off. You can't buy a home in Pickering or Uxbridge if you're starting. I mean, the real estate board gave us the numbers on the opening statements: $1 million in Pickering, $1.2 million in Uxbridge, if I recall. So we've put forward a plan in Canada's recovery plan to build 1 million homes in 3 years. And we're going to do that through a number of policies. I won't be able to touch on all of them, but a couple to highlight. The first is that the federal government is actually the largest landholder in the country. And we've committed to reviewing that suite of lands and allocating up to 15% for housing to increase the supply in the GTA, because it's supply and demand. That's number one. We're also going to make some changes to mortgage rules to encourage 7- and 10-year mortgages to provide more flexibility and stability for first-time home buyers. So this is something that's really close to me because I'm in the situation. But if you'd like to know more, we have our whole plan on housing. It's a number of pages long because we care about this issue. Thanks, Joan.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And moving now to Jennifer O'Connell, and that will be followed by Eileen Higdon. Jennifer?
Thank you. Housing is certainly an important issue for our community. I grew up in Pickering, and I want to ensure that many other young people get to stay and raise their families in our community. specifically in terms of supply, because we have a number of measures in our platform when it comes to affordability. So I would draw people there as well. But when it comes to supply, we're committing to build 1.4 million new homes. And in addition to that, how we're going to do that is actually by creating a $4 billion in a new housing accelerator fund. So what this is going to do is actually work with municipalities, because the federal government can't leave out the fact that we need to be a partner at the table with municipalities to deal with increasing transit-oriented density, to deal with red tape. And we're going to incentivize municipalities that create more dense on transit networks. We're going to incentivize those municipalities and help support the development. Pickering-Uxbridge is a growing communities, and this is exactly the sort of investments that I know we need here to streamline that process.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that. And Eileen Higdon, is your response as the NDP for Pickering-Uxbridge.
Can you just hear the ka-chink, ka-chink for their friends? I cannot, did you hear any word about rental income? I didn't hear one time mentioned rental income. We have to work with the CHMC, is that the way you said it? And the municipalities and with nonprofits to get building affordable rent building. And I would like to see, we have a huge opportunity here in Pickering. We're building this community of Seaton. It's exciting, it's brand new, and I would like to see 20% of that community built for affordable housing. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And now we're going to move to the Ajax NDP candidate, Monique, and that will be followed by the Ajax Green candidate, Lee. Monique?
Hi, yes. So the NDP will be doubling the first-time homeowners credit by turning that into a rebate, so the first-time homeowners can get it immediately, creating 500,000 new homes families that families can afford over the next 10 years, as well as seeing 1.7 million homes built, renovated, and preserve over the next 4 years, as well as for rentals. We will be able to give up to $5,000 a year to help with renters struggling to make their payments, which we've all seen during this pandemic, where, again, even with the CERB of being $2,000, it was barely enough. But we are, keep hearing a lot of things from the Liberals and the Conservatives who keep saying, this is what we want to do, this is what we want to do. But they've had opportunities to do so, and they haven't done it. So with that being said, it is time for a change.
Thank you very much, Monique. And we'll move now to the Ajax Green candidate, Lee.
Yes, thank you for that question. I too am a young person. I just bought my first home in Ajax before the pandemic. And if I hadn't bought it then, I wouldn't be able to live anywhere in the GTA with prices the way that they are now. And so the Green Party wants to not increase the amount of debt that young people can get into in order to get into the housing market. They want to actually create affordable housing and rental units so that folks can live with dignity and security. This means increasing the national strategy for housing co-ops so that folks can get into the housing market, build some equity, and then move into detached homes. We want to make sure that we are committing 1% of GST to housing and municipal infrastructure so that municipalities can plan for the communities that they need. And we need the Federal Housing Advocate to be announced as was outlined in the National Housing Strategy Act, which hasn't happened yet.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that. And so we're going to move to the final question. I will comment now, though, that we are going to also give you 3 minutes for your closing remarks because we've been able to keep on the time frame that we wanted to. So question number 7. And this is a fundamental again, and it will start with Lee and go to Monique and then Jennifer, Eileen, and Jacob. This one's protecting our environment. One of the challenges that we are all aware of is the need to protect our environment. By bringing together innovative technologies, common interests, and intent, and with world-leading standards, Canadian businesses can demonstrate environmental stewardship, economic growth, and attract investment. What is your party's strategy to help achieve net zero emissions? And this is a 1-minute answer, and we will start with Lee, please.
I'm so happy as the Green candidate that this is the question that I get to go first on. Of course, the Green Party wants to support green businesses and a transition to a just and sustainable economy. This means that we need to invest in clean technology and in energy, both kind of renewable energy, but also energy storage, things like batteries. We need to be able to retrain folks who are coming out of fossil fuel industries and other industries that are declining so that those skills can actually be implemented in this new economy and used for the good of our communities. Some of the ways that this impacts Ajax is by making sure that businesses have access to emerging technologies, supporting entrepreneurship within our own communities, and also making sure that we're investing in the clean technology that's going to be the foundation of our new economy.
Thank you very much, Lee. And moving to the Ajax NDP candidate, Monique.
Yes, thank you for this question. As many of you may be aware that I was a provincial candidate. So Crothers Creek in Ajax, or in Pickering Ajax, has been a very big conversation for Ajax. And as of lately, I've heard that the land is being questioned to already be sold to investors for homes or businesses. It's quite interesting that, all these parties have conversations about, climate change and protecting the land, but the land that we've been discussing for a long time is up for sales, as well as up north in Uxbridge, the land that people are using for farming. We're considering an airport. So when we do speak of climate change and we speak of protecting the land, are we really in our hearts believing that we are looking to protect the land? Because an airport and homes in our wetlands, I'm not sure if that works.
Thank you very much, Monique. And now we're going to move to Jennifer, and then followed by Eileen, and finally Jacob on this question. So starting with Pickering-Uxbridge Liberal candidate, Jennifer O'Connell.
Thank you. And I'm really happy that this is a topic of discussion here today. Our government, our plan actually was recently top rated by an environmental economist, 8 out of 10, top rating for all of the parties' platforms when it comes to the environment. We have stood up and we have put a price on pollution. We are going to ban single-use plastics. We are transitioning into a green economy, but ensuring workers aren't left behind. And personally, locally, I have spent years fighting against an unnecessary development of an airport on prime agricultural lands. I have said time and time again, we have a huge economic opportunity in this region to sustainably grow our foods, create innovation, create good jobs in northern Pickering and across Uxbridge and across Durham region by doing what we're good at, which is innovating, hard work, and ensuring that we have a food supply for our communities right across this country. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And moving to Eileen Higdon, please, for your response.
Okay, I'm good now. Okay. The Durham region is blessed with a well-trained and highly educated workforce. We are in a strong position, as Jennifer says, to create new jobs in research, development, and producing renewable solutions. What else? Oh gosh, Canada. Okay, Canada. So I'm lost my spot. Oh gosh. Okay, let's move on. Oh, people, I'm sorry. I'm mucked up.
Okay.
Sorry.
No problem. No problem. Thank you, Eileen.
Right.
We'll move on now to Jacob Mantle for the same question, please.
Thanks, Joan. A very important question. And where I'm speaking to you right now, this morning and this afternoon is I'm on the Oak Ridges Moraine, where I live in Uxbridge. I've lived here my whole life. And in fact, I'm sitting on a managed forest plan, which my family voluntarily undertook because we care about our environment and the land that we live on and that our ancestors have farmed. The Conservatives have a serious plan to tackle climate change and to reduce our emissions by 2030. Jennifer talked about independent analysis, and we also had our plan third-party reviewed by Navius Research, a well-known and respected consultancy firm out of British Columbia, who found that our plan would effectively achieve all the same emissions as the current plan by 2030, but resulting in a boost in jobs in the economy. Because we can't have a government that puts one region of Canada against another. We can't have members of parliament in Ontario paying Ontarians against Albertans or Quebecers against BCs, people from BC or Albertans. We have to have a climate change that works for all regions of Canada, and that's what our plan delivers.
Thank you very much. So that's the end of our formal questions. And I know that there's been lots of Q&As and some chat that I hope that everyone will take a look at. What we're going to do now is we're going to move to closing remarks, and we're going to give the opportunity for everyone to have 3 minutes for their closing remarks. And this is where you should tell us why we should vote for you and for your party. And we're going to start with Pickering-Uxbridge, and Jennifer's going to lead us off, and then Eileen, then Jacob, and then we'll move to Ajax, and that will start with Monique and end with Lee. So we're going to start with Jennifer, and you have 3 minutes. And what you will see on your screen is only the last minute of timing. So thank you.
Perfect. Thank you. And thank you, everyone, for your participation in this today. I think it's really important and really a sign of a healthy democracy when we can all come and share our ideas, even if we might disagree on some of them, but to do so in a forum where people have the choice. And that's what this election really is about. It's about a choice, and it's about Canadians having that opportunity to set the path for the future. We talked a lot about various issues here today, whether it's housing affordability, economic growth, broadband investments. We didn't touch on healthcare yet, but I know in a limited amount of time, we can't touch on everything. I want to talk about childcare. We didn't talk about childcare and the economic opportunities that there would be to have a $10 a day childcare plan in this country. That's something we already passed. And the Conservatives have said they would rip up those 8 agreements. Think about the businesses out there, your employees, or if you're starting a business yourself and you have young children, and what that would mean for you to have $10 a day childcare. We talked about things like climate change. The cost of inaction, we all know, is too great. The Conservatives' plan would take us out of the Paris Accord. We would see 100-year storms happening more and more. We would see the devastation that climate change is causing on our communities and our economy. And all of these things are really important. They're important to our communities, they're important to our businesses, and they're important to the people who live here. That's what I fight for every single day. I fight to ensure that future generations have a clean climate, that they have jobs to go to, that they'll have access to safe and affordable childcare, that they'll have access to healthcare that is not a 2-tier system, which the Conservatives are proposing, that would allow those who can afford to pay to cut ahead of everybody else. But we can only have these debates. We can only have this discussion moving forward on how we rebuild after the pandemic through having this election, understanding the progress that Canadians want us to make. And the way we do that is by finishing the fight against COVID. And the way we do that is ensuring that everybody who can get vaccinated is vaccinated. We need leaders like Prime Minister Justin Trudeau and the leader of our party that stands up, that's going to stand up for small businesses, that's going to stand up for families, that says, you know, we don't want lockdowns anymore. We don't want virtual learning for our children. And the way we get through this pandemic, the way we grow our economy is by standing up for Canadians, by doing the right thing, getting vaccinated, and ensuring we get through this pandemic. And then we can continue to debate the important issues that affect us right here at home. So that is what I'm fighting for. And I hope I have presented the things that I think are really important to our communities, and that you'll vote for me and re-elect me as the MP for Pickering-Uxbridge. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Jennifer. And now we're going to move to the Pickering-Uxbridge NDP candidate, Eileen Higdon, for closing remarks.
Friends, New Democrats are different because we are working for people. For our whole history, we have fought for better working conditions and standards that lift up everyone. The pandemic has taken its toll on Canadians. Canadians have sacrificed enough and shouldn't have to pay for recovery. Billionaires and corporations that profited should be taxed, and no loopholes. Close all those loopholes. We need a prime minister who stops protecting them and who stands up for Canadians instead. We learned a lot about Justin Trudeau in the last 6 years. He wants to look like he cares, but he says the right thing with no intention of doing anything. The pandemic, he had to be forced by the NDP to provide people a real support. He refused to ask the wealthy to pay more. He'll roll out his pretty words and fake promises again this election. And Erin O'Toole, his plan is to protect the rich. Not surprising. He's no friend of workers. He hasn't got a single benefit for Canadians in the pandemic. While he was in the cabinet of Stephen Harper, he cut the transfer payments across for the provinces by 50%. That is the kind of real person he is. And the climate change here in Pickering, we have a very secretive meeting held by Pickering Council, special they called it, and it is putting concrete over the Crothers Creek Marsh. And this is affecting our neighbours, and I do not support that. It has to come before the region of Durham before it should move forward. These COVID-19, we have to be courageous and we have to be brave to stand up and say, we know the science and that masks and vaccination and washing our hands work. We will be the healthy ones. If we remember the times, how hard it was to get people to stop smoking, it was extremely difficult to get people to stop smoking. I firmly condemn anybody who is not supportive of our current plan to get through the COVID-19. Thank you very much. Oh no, I got a minute or two more. Sorry, yes. Okay. During this campaign, Jack Meetson and the NDP have a record of fighting for you. Be courageous. Vote Eileen Higdon, Pickering-Uxbridge MP. Thank you.
Thank you, Eileen. And now we're going to move to the Ajax NDP candidate, Monique Hughes.
Again, I want to thank the Board of Trades for having me today in this opportunity to speak from my heart in my closing. You know, as I said earlier, growing up in Pickering, realizing that our hands of government has changed from liberals to conservatives over and over and over. And really, I realized that the issues that we deal with today is because of those governments. Just a couple of points that I wanted to, the liberals voted against numerous amount of times against pharmacare for all Canadians. That means lower pharmacies, drug prices, as well as dental care, vision care. As we can see right now, I believe the vision, drawing a blank on what they are, but they've put a stop to all government payments on that, where now Canadians have to pay for that self, or Ontarians have to pay for them themselves. Erin O'Toole hasn't really had any plans really for Canadians during this pandemic. He's kind of just going with the flow and making it work for his friends who have definitely benefited from this. And the Green Party, as we all are aware of, that there was a MP that decided to switch sides and leave. So showing loyalty is something that may be missing from them. What we're realizing over the years as a young Canadian, first of all, is that during this pandemic, minorities, immigrants, were missed out on. I remember marching in 2020 for Black Lives Matters. And everybody stood up and said, we support, but did we really see the support? Did our workplaces have conversations? As a Black woman here today, I'm grateful and I'm glad that I actually had the opportunity to speak here and use my voice. We've noticed over the years that the liberals and the conservatives just keep making promises and promises, and things are not changing. The NDP promises to slash federal loans. During this pandemic, the federal and provincial government still had on Canadians paying their loans back where there was no funds to come in. That $2,000 could only go so far. The NDP wants to, as we've said, we want to tax the rich or the wealthiest so that they can pay their fair share of taxes. I know here right now, I'm nervous and I've been nervous this whole thing, but let me say one more thing while I have a couple of seconds left. I'm here because there's a passion of my heart to help people. It's not just about the paycheck, and it's not about just showing up at places to get a picture moment in, which we've noticed in our governments. It's about just showing up and smiling. But I'm really here to serve the people of Ajax. I'm really here to put a voice. And I really hope on election day that you consider Monique Hughes as your new NDP representative at
Thank you. Thank you very much. So we've heard from the Liberal candidate, 2 of our NDP candidates. We're going to move now to Conservative candidate for Pickering-Uxbridge, Jacob Mantle, and that will be followed by the Ajax Green candidate. Jacob?
Thank you, Joan. Let me start by thanking you and the board for hosting this event and for covering a lot of the key topics, many of which I'm hearing at the door. So you're doing something right there. Let me also thank my colleagues and opponents, Jennifer and Eileen specifically, for being here. Thanks to my friends for them joining us here. And I agree, we may come at these issues from different perspectives, but we all share a commitment to democracy and to part of this process and giving people a voice. And I say my friends with all sincerity, as a lawyer, when we're in the courtroom or in the tribunal, we refer to each other as friends because although we may be on a different side of a debate, we share our commitment to those foundational pillars of our society. So my thanks to Jennifer and Eileen for participating today. As I'll finish as I started, which is sort of asking the question of why we're here. And I think fundamentally, this is not about giving Canadians a choice. This is about Justin Trudeau seeking more power for himself. And I think the Liberals have failed to explain why we need to have an election in the middle of a pandemic, in the middle of the Delta-driven 4th wave. And I sincerely hope that we don't see additional cases by virtue of people going out to vote and exercising their democratic right, because that would be a tragedy. I also think it doesn't help talking about Donald Trump. He has not been prime minister, he has not been president, for over 8 months. And I think that just shows the desperation of the Liberal campaign. Conservatives get accused of being divisive or importing American-style politics into Canada, but the only one who did that today was Ms. O'Connell. And I think that doesn't do anything to help businesses in Pickering or Uxbridge. Instead, as Conservatives, we put forward a big plan. We introduced Canada's recovery plan on the second day of the campaign because we wanted to have a serious plan for recovery out of this pandemic that works for everyone, including for small businesses, big businesses, and medium businesses in Pickering and in Uxbridge. And I would encourage all the businesses here to look at that plan and look at some of the points we've discussed today, including covering net new hires, the cost of their salaries for 6 months, including a GST holiday to put more money into bricks and mortar, including Dine and Discover, including eating out and getting a rebate to help our restaurants and bars in our community. So when you get there on September 20th, or if you go to the advanced polls, which are opening this week, which I would encourage everyone to do to avoid the lines and avoid any danger of this, pandemic, think about what this government has done in the last 6 years, or what it hasn't done, frankly, for you in Pickering and in Uxbridge, and look at our plan and look at the positive plan we have to move us out of this pandemic and help our businesses, specifically our businesses in Pickering and Uxbridge, recover. So that's why I'm here today. I'm here to ask for your support so that we can get that plan accomplished for you here in Pickering and in Uxbridge. Thank you.
Thank you, Jacob. And now we're moving to the Ajax Green candidate, Lee Hulseth.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. I do appreciate having being here today, and I appreciate the chance to speak with all of the candidates who have attended. To start, I just want to say that I'm deeply committed to our community. Throughout the pandemic, I've volunteered with the Pickering-Ajax Caremongers to deliver food and supplies to those who need it most. And when the provincial government decided that they wanted to pave over a wetland, I was there too. I was part of a group of citizens who organized against developing the Duffins wetland for an Amazon warehouse. We fought the provincial government, we fought Amazon, and we won. That warehouse is now being relocated to a place that's already been paved over. And so when it comes to our commitment to the environment and to climate change, the Green Party is the only choice for folks. None of the other parties, the Conservatives, Liberals, or the NDP, have a plan that will make us meet our Paris targets. And we know that that is essential if we want to make sure that the next generation has a livable future on this planet. We're also the only party who is committed to canceling the Trans Mountain Pipeline. None of the other parties has committed to this. And so the governing party right now and other parties like them think that the major problems of our time will be solved by small changes or rebates. And this is incredibly dangerous. Only the Green Party is looking to fulfill those ideals long-term and have long-term plans to get us where we need to be. The Green Party job strategy isn't about green jobs, it's about creating the jobs of the future and providing workers and citizens the ability to participate in our economy in a way that's going to benefit business and our Canadian society more generally. We need to be able to empower the Canadian dream that has been taken away from our youth and the most vulnerable. They need to be included through policies that improve affordability here in Ajax, and so that they can actually continue to contribute to our local businesses. Essentially, folks want other parties want the status quo, and the pandemic has taught us that that is not acceptable. Ajax is growing within our own urban growth boundaries. And this is really exciting. It provides us the opportunities to be leaders in the new economy and to make sure that we are going to be decades ahead of other municipalities within Canada when they face those restraints. And so this won't be without challenges, and I don't necessarily have all of the answers, but at least the Green Party is asking the correct questions. So vote for me on September 20th, Lee Paulseth for Ajax.
Thank you. I want to say thank you to each of the candidates for taking the time today to be with us, but also for taking the time to campaign in this election. It's really important, and I know it's a personal sacrifice for many of you. So thank you for that. As we look at international and domestic challenges that we face as a country, we need strong leadership in our federal government. And to the successful party, you have our commitment that Ajax Pickering Board of Trade will work closely with the federal party that is elected to both advocate on important business issues and to promote our strong local communities. And to our attendees, we hope that you found this event very informative, and we would encourage you to pursue any follow-up questions with these candidates. Please encourage your employees, your families, and your friends to vote. A reminder that the election day is September 20th. Advance polls are open September 10th to September 13th. And now I'm very happy to turn this meeting over to our Ajax Pickering Board of Trade 2021 President, Annalise St. Aubin.
Thanks,
Annalise.
Joan. Thanks. What a great event this has been. And I just want to say a big thank you to Joan and to the GR committee for your leadership in pulling this event together. It's been great. And also thank you to all of the candidates for taking the time today and for the great discussion that we've had. Advocacy is one of the 3 pillars of the Board of Trade strategic plan. Our members share their pain points with us, and then we bring those concerns and solutions to stakeholders and decision makers. In 2022, we'll bring more of these forums to our business community as we prepare for a provincial election in the spring and municipal election in the fall. We will also be focusing on supporting our members' changing needs through COVID-19 and recovery. There's work to be done, but the Ajax Pickering Board of Trade and our members are optimistic about the months ahead. Before we all head off for the rest of the day, I just want to remind you of a few things. On October 21st, we'll host Canada's Innovation Corridor Summit. Canada's Innovation Corridor, anchored by the GTHA and Waterloo regions, is a high-growth economic zone in Southern Ontario defined by a dense cluster of advanced manufacturing and tech firms. The 2021 summit will offer keynotes and panel discussions focused on the human integration of talent and tech to capture sector disruptive opportunities. We also have several in-person networking events coming up, including a networking breakfast on September 21st and social networking trivia night on September 29th. And don't forget to save the date, October 21st, for our 2021 Business Excellence Awards, where we'll celebrate leaders in our business community. For information on these and all of our upcoming events, please visit our events calendar on the website. And a final thank you again to our presenting sponsor, the Durham Region Association of Realtors and the Toronto Region Real Estate Board. Thank you all for joining us today, and remember to vote in advanced polls or on September 20th. Wishing you all a successful day of business.
Hi there, I'm Mark Hollinger, Liberal candidate for Ajax. Well, it's hard to believe a seventh Board of Trade event is happening during an election where we get a chance to talk about the issues happening in the day. And this is the first time I'm not able to participate. I'm deeply sorry for that. I've been called to Ottawa to make an announcement on behalf of the national campaign. Otherwise, of course, I would be here once again. But I want to say how proud I am to have represented this community over 6 terms. We have an incredibly vibrant community in Ajax that is growing so much, and I'm so proud of what our government has done over the last 6 years to help our region grow and to make sure that we're safe and secure in these very challenging times. You know, it wasn't so long ago that opposition members were decrying that there weren't going to be vaccinations available for the population, that we shouldn't have support for Canadians, attacking the support that we put there. But now when we see Canada having the highest vaccination rate in the G20, when we see the supports being there to support Canadians through incredibly difficult times, the supports that were there for businesses, I'm incredibly proud of what we've been able to do together. And there's so much more to do. You look at the climate and what's happening around the world, it's not time to go backwards on climate action. When you look at independent analysis done by environmental organizations of our climate plan, it comes out on top. When you take a look at the growth we made between 2015 and just before the pandemic, where we gained 1 million jobs, we lost 3 million during the pandemic, but we've almost gained all of those back, just a couple 100,000 short. Together, we've made massive strides. I'm sure we can continue doing that. I look forward to having Jennifer O'Connell describe our plan for our region and our country.
I am Cornelius Chisu, a professional engineer and a retired major from the Canadian Forces Engineers. I am the candidate for People's Party of Canada in Pickering-Uxbridge. The PPC campaign platform is based on the founding principles of our party: freedom, fairness, respect, and individual responsibility. Especially important for us is the freedom of the individual, which is the cornerstone of our democracy that made Canada one of the most successful countries in the world. Today, however, freedom is under siege. Freedom of expression became a prisoner of the polluting political correctness. As a nation, we need to be able to talk freely in a civilized manner in order to continue to build successfully our country. Hate speech has no place in our society, as it is well defined in the criminal code. There is no need for other divisive pieces of legislation with no real foundation and meant only to limit the freedom of speech. Freedom of the individual is also under significant threat. Under the cover of the COVID-19 pandemic, the governing and the willing to govern elitist political parties are eager to limit individual freedom as much as possible, even having a say in control over our own body. Lockdowns, forced vaccination under the threat of losing your livelihood, vaccination passports are a blatant infringement of individual freedom, reminiscent of the last century's political dictatorships. Let's return to sanity, freedom, fairness, respect, and individual responsibility. It is time for a great Canadian awakening. Vote PPC, vote Corneliu Cisu.
Call the Rogers TV viewer response line, email us, or connect with us on social media. You're watching Rogers TV. The opinions expressed in the following programs are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect those of Rogers nor Rogers TV.
Hi, welcome to COVID-19 and Seniors. I'm Sergeant Deborah Anderton, and I'm here with another wonderful guest, as I am every month. This month's guest is Sergeant Amanda Hoover. She works in the Vulnerable Persons Unit, and we're going to learn a little bit about Amanda and what she does, and a recent expansion of a portion of our unit. And Amanda is the one who's kind of in charge of that and making sure it happens smoothly, and she can expand on everything that's been going on in our organization in that area. But first, Amanda, why don't you just tell a little bit about yourself, and then I'm going to delve into a little bit more about your background and your history, and ask you some questions that might be relevant to our senior listeners. So tell us about you.
All right. Thank you, Deb, for having me. Are you cool if I call you Deb, or do you want me to call you Sergeant?
You can call me whatever you want. Everybody else does. So Deb's great.
Okay. Well, thank you for having me. And hi to everyone out there who's watching. I'm Sergeant Amanda Hoover, but I'm just going to call me Amanda moving forward from this. I've been a police officer with Durham for about 23 years. I was hired in 98. I guess, Deb, do you just want me to kind of tell you where I've been?
Yeah, that'd be great. Give us a little bit of your background. I always like to get the story of the people that I interview. So it kind of gives a little bit of understanding of how you got to where you are and what you're doing with your life right now. And, you know, because you're a police officer like me, I do understand it. But our listeners would love to know, you know, how did you become a police officer, what you've done in Durham Regional Police Service, and then I'll delve into asking you other questions. Sound good?
Sounds good.
Okay.
Okay, so I was fortunate to be hired when I was young. I was only 23 when I was hired. So I came into policing very fresh and full of ideas about how I was going to save the world, which I think I'm finally in a position where I get to do have a lot more impact on the things that are really important to me. In my career, though, I've been able to work frontline Oshawa, which I'm super passionate about. I love Oshawa. I love all the people in Oshawa. I was also lucky enough to work in 19 Division, which is now called our West Division, which is a city of Ajax, town of Ajax, city of Pickering. I loved working at there too for all the diversity and all the different people I got to meet, lots of different cultures, lots of different people who may not have had interactions with police before. So I was able to work in 2 different divisions throughout my career, both of which I love equally for different reasons. I've also been able to work in investigative units, being our CIB. I was there for, I think, 4 years in Oshawa.
And CIB is a Criminal Investigations Bureau for those people that don't understand that. Carry on.
Thank you. And then in our major crime unit, and I was for 4 years in fraud on the organized crime side. Excellent. Also a very interesting role. And I've also worked in our central cells for the last year and a half after I was promoted. That was something, I don't know if you want to talk about that, but why that was really important to me to be able to work with our civilian members and special constables, which very important in our organization. And also with the people who came into central cells, if someone's arrested, there's the opportunity to talk to them, get to know them, humanize it for them as best I could. It was just a unique opportunity for me with how I'm wired, what's important to me in policing, to be able to work in that role. And then now I'm in our community safety unit, which is really exciting because I'm finally in an area that I get not free reign, but within the rules of the organization and being a police officer to really work with the community partners, members of the community, marginalized community, and just get to do things I really love.
Excellent. So your career has now come to a point where the things that you're passionate about and the things that you feel you can make a difference at, it's all come together, and now you're actually supervising a unit of people that are marginalized, what they deal with marginalized people, and you feel like you can put a little bit of a mark on this unit.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. So tell us about the units currently that you oversee and you supervise.
Okay, so if you can't see because I'm trying really hard not to move because I have my blur on. So if I look like it appears everyone I do, it's just got my blur on.
I've actually been sitting here trying not to giggle, but you look like a little bit like you're out of Star Trek because you don't have ears right now when you're not moving. So yeah, it's great. I like the blur.
Well, so I'm trying to sit still, but I'm counting on my fingers so I don't miss anyone. I have 5 units. I'm super fortunate to work with really amazing people under the vulnerable persons unit, and I'm under community safety. So I've got Crime Stoppers, I have Neighborhood Watch, I have the Crime Prevention Officer, which I have to give a shout out to Daryl Rice. I think a lot of your viewers probably know Daryl.
Yeah.
Then I've got the Mental Health Unit and Mental Health Support Unit and Durham Connect. So 5 units varied with varying officers. So civilian members who are equally as important in this organization, and the sworn members doing different roles under the community safety umbrella. But today, if you're cool with it, we'll kind of talk about the mental health support unit.
Yeah, we can do that. We do have a lot of time to cover. So I just want to clarify for the viewers who don't know who Daryl Rice is. So we actually have 2 shows with Durham Regional Police. We might actually have more, but 2 that I know of with the Rogers. And Daryl and I, in the very beginning, were doing the other show. I know I'm like completely lost because I'm so used to saying COVID-19 and seniors with DRPS. It's DRPS and seniors. That's the other show that Daryl and I used to do together. And then when COVID-19 hit, the community was asking for more shows from the police organization to, help our seniors out and get them with other things to do because everything was shutting down when we first hit COVID, as everybody knows. And so Daryl took over that show and we started this show. So those of you who don't know, that's Daryl's show now until COVID-19 clears up, and then Daryl and I would go back to hosting it together, or, each month we would do a show together. So that's who Daryl Rice is. And he is our community safety officer. Great smile, very charming, does a wonderful job with the other show. So let's go back to what you're supervising right now. So let's start off with, what do you want to start off with? I want to talk about the mental health support unit for sure, because that's the units that recently expanded. But let's give a little bit of airtime to the other units and how they're important. And as much as this is a show about seniors, I think the seniors are a vulnerable population. And I think knowing how Durham Regional Police cares about and, does different aspects of caring about the vulnerable population is very important here. So let's talk about some of those units, and then we'll delve into the mental health support unit after our break. Sound good?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
That's good.
Okay, so talk to me about one of your units that you want to talk about.
So one of the units that may be pertinent to the viewers here, seniors, and anyone else who's watching, is Crime Stoppers. I'm not really sure how much people know. Obviously, you hear ads on the radio. You've probably seen commercials on TV back when, before COVID, and the coordinator could go and do commercials on TV. But if you have a concern in the community, if you've seen a crime, if you think something bad is happening, you don't necessarily want to call a police officer and identify yourself. It's an opportunity to call the Crime Stoppers number anonymously and provide information that the police can follow up on. So you still feel like you're contributing. You still feel like you're letting the police know that something's going on. And if you're not comfortable with having your name attached to that information, that's a way for you to do it. And then the police can still look into it. So that's in a unit, and our coordinator for Crime Stoppers is amazing. Very good at her job, and she makes sure that information will get to the appropriate people to look into and investigate the concerns that you're bringing forward. So that might be something that they'd want to know.
I understand there's a phone number. Is there another way for them to contact? Is there a way through, if they're online, is there a way to do it that way as well?
There is, and I will have to get you back to you with that information.
Sorry, that's great. Okay. So 1-800-222-TIPS is the phone number. And I think that's probably the easiest way for most of our seniors to contact Crime Stoppers. And you're right, they don't have to give their name. They don't have to identify themselves in any way, shape, or form, but they can make sure that something gets investigated by the police, especially if it's, a safety issue. We really want to know about those kind of things. And I know a lot of seniors are hesitant about calling the police. And so I think it is a wonderful avenue. And thank you for bringing that to our attention. Okay, so tell us about another one of the units you think the seniors should know about.
Well, so I'm not sure how much Daryl talks about on his show, but he so Daryl's a crime prevent, Daryl Rice, Constable Daryl Rice, for those who would like to know his official title. If you ever want to reach out to the police, to Durham Police, and ask for him, Daryl goes out and does a lot of community talks, a lot of education, a lot of talks regarding, he just recently did one about bullying to a group of young teenage. It was really important to them to hear what he had to say. He also does a lot of talks around frauds and things that are important to seniors to know, just to know what you should be looking out for so you're not taken advantage of.